call it to order. We have a quorum, and we have two board members, Doug Alexander and Doug Meyer, that are joining us by video conference this morning. You gentlemen both there?
Yes, Alexander.
Very good. Okay. We need a motion for the resolution for special election levy issue.
I make the motion to authorize a resolution calling for a special election to be held on April 7th, 2020, to authorize an increase in the district's operating tax levy by 50 cents per $100 of assessed value. I'd also like to ask for a roll call, please.
Second.
Second, Doug Meyer.
We got Brittany seconded before you, Doug, but thank you. I know it's hard to hear. Do we have any discussion before we take our vote?
Well, I do. Of course, you knew that was coming, I'm sure. I want you to, before you vote on this, to think about a couple of things. First and foremost, think about what the end point is. We, as one of many political subdivisions, find raising taxes to be our first and oftentimes only solution to any challenges that face us. Okay, but where does that stop? A quick illustration, and I'll use sales tax. When I was a kid working at a Sonic, taking orders without a computer because I'm old, I had to add the tickets in my head. I had to add the tax in my head. I remember it was 3 5/8 cents when I was 17. I'm now 56, and it's over 10% in most jurisdictions, or very close to 10%. What's it going to be when my children are in their 50s? But more importantly, what is the end point? Is 20% too much? 30, 40? I don't know what it is. The same logic applies to property taxes and personal property taxes. I pulled some numbers the other day, just out of curiosity. Pardon me. Most of you, I think, know where I live. We live in it's not a small house, but it's not a mansion by any means. I would call it typical in this area. In 2019, after the assessed value went up, our taxes, just the school portion of our taxes, were $3,195.08. That's up from 2018, which was $2,879.79. Putting that in real terms, that's $26.27 per month, or $315.29 per year. That's without a rate increase. That's a 10.95 increase in the cost of taxes to my family, just for the school district. Nobody else, no state, no Casco, no library, no road and bridge. That's just the school district, and that's just based on assessed value. Now we want to turn around and add another 40 cents, effectively 8%-ish. So in my case, we're asking for almost a 19% increase in 2 years, over a 2-year period. That's pretty healthy. So I would encourage you to consider those things before you cast your vote. That's where I would leave it.
Any other comments? Okay.
Chris, the only thing I'm going to rebut there is, we have made other efforts. We cut 8 staff members last year. We're going to continue to cut those staff members. But the point is, we can't cut our way to giving increases to our teachers. It's the only revenue source we have as taxpayers, and I get that. So I just wanted to say that's the only thing I wanted to say.
And I appreciate that, and I should clarify what I said. I know you've made some tremendous efforts and done some things that were tough but needed to be done, and I'm very appreciative of that. What I meant when I said that was this body, we've not deliberated any other options. There's not, unless I missed a meeting somewhere, we have not sat down as a body and said, okay, do we cut mathematics? Is that a better program? And obviously, I'm being facetious, but from the get-go, from my view, it's been how do we maneuver this so that we can increase this tax rate? That's been a frustration for me. So, anyways, thank you. You made a good point.
And I would just like to say that being a board member, for me, it's to do what's best for the district, not what's best for Nancy. Because I don't want to pay more taxes. Trust me, I don't even want to think about the check I wrote last year. But what is best for this district and the students and the staff that are in this district, and to my way of thinking, there is no other choice. There's no other choice. There's no other magic pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that we're going to find to make up for our revenue stream that we don't have. So this is the only way we can support the programs and the salaries and everything it takes to keep this district going. That's my point of view.
And to the point of cutting, we did cut 8 staff. That's not the end goal, is cutting staff.
No.
Cutting programs to me is not an option, because
No.
where does that end? So, you see it on TV all over the place that programs are going. When you don't want to lose the arts, you don't want to lose any sports programs. Those are the things that keep kids involved and keep them active and out of trouble and help them be successful. And if that's to the point where we're at, then the burden does fall on we, the taxpayers. And I to your point, Nancy, I agree that at this moment I'm thinking what is the best for the district. And to get the things that we need, someone has to pay for it. The governor himself has said, that's you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that's unfortunately where we're at. We are not getting funding from any additional funding from any government entity. That falls on us.
Exactly.
And I appreciate your positions. And I hope you know that, last time I did this, I got labeled as hating children and being anti-kids. And I think those of you who know me well know that that is not the case. But I go back to, I agree with everything you're saying, but I go back to that question, what is the end point? Where does it stop? How much is too much?
That's a question for the atmosphere.
Well, no, it's a question for the political subdivisions
Well,
that
they'll
implement
decide.
tax
They'll
policy.
decide. They will decide.
But we are them. We are they.
We all have a vote.
Yes, we do.
And the flip side is, what is the end point with the district? Is it cutting programs? So where does that stop? Because once you start, that's what you're doing, is cutting programs to get the funding for the teachers, which is great, but now you don't have the activities for the kids. Which one are you going to cut?
And
Which one is most important? Which one is least important? And you can't label those either. So that's where, and I appreciate your position, because I don't want to pay more taxes. Me, the taxpayer, I don't want to pay any more. But I understand I'm going to have to do that to get what the district needs.
But as I said, it's not just about me paying more taxes. We have not deliberated those things that you just articulated. What are the cuts? What are the things? We've not had that deliberation. We've said we don't want to cut. Well, okay, I accept that. Nobody does. That's painful. And then we've said, okay, so since we don't want to cut anything, we got to raise taxes. Well, I'd like to look at what those options are. They may be really bad, and I facetiously said cut mathematics. I would never vote for that. If that were the choice, of course I would vote for that. Well, agreed. But if that were the choice, then okay, I don't want to increase taxes, but that makes sense to me. Increase taxes before we cut mathematics. Now, if we're saying, I'm not going to pick on any one subject or item at our schools, but if we're saying we eliminate or reduce funding in this program, it may make more sense based on our community and the tax burden that our community is already bearing.
And Chris, I would just say that the board did deliberate last year when those cuts were made. So those were all brought to you when we talked, and one of the biggest changes we made was to the middle school philosophy to the junior high. And that was a change. There were a lot of reasons for that change, but a big part of that change was for dollars and cents, so we can reduce staff.
You're correct. We did.
I think it's something to be fiscally responsible, we have to continue to evaluate how we can save money, regardless of levy increase or not. I think to be fiscally responsible, we have to continue to evaluate and see, is this fiscally responsible to keep these programs? So we're going to have to still look at it regardless of.
Regardless of the levy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the point too that we made in the meeting on Tuesday night was the fact that we haven't asked the voters for an increase in 20 years, and in those 20 years, prices have went up, things cost more when they break down.
Assessed value has gone up.
Assessed value
Revenues
has
have
gone
gone up. I mean,
But everything goes up,
Expenses have-
and for us to keep kicking the can down the road isn't going to solve any problems.
exactly my point. Thank you, Bing.
We see
So
that
what's the
city,
end point?
We see the city having the same issue with, the water rates and the electric rates. For years we didn't increase those. We didn't plan out ahead for infrastructure problems, things like this that happen. And now you have to take a bigger bite because you've got to make up for that lost time instead of staggering this stuff out over time and making the increases a little bit by little bit. So, yeah, this looks like it's going to be a big chunk, but we haven't done this for 20 years.
So what is the end point? We haven't done it for 20 years. You're telling me that we should do it because we haven't done it for 20 years. But wasn't it already too high or high enough?
I think we're right above- we're right where everybody else
hang on
is.
just a second. We're talking about, don't get me started on the argument of we should be where everybody else is, but we're talking about a rate increase. You're talking about things like the electric costs and sewage. That is a fixed dollar cost. We're increasing a rate here on something, on a rate on a number that's already typically growing, and that's assessed value. So revenue, as long as assessed value grows, which it has over that last 20 years, revenue grows.
And don't forget, we're capped at that growth. It may go up 10%, but we're limited to 1.9. So we're not getting the full value of that growth.
Except don't forget what we did when we prepaid bonds to finagle our and
I think
avoid
that's what's good about our
Hancock.
board is we've got a longer range vision, and I think Paul has laid that out for us. These are things that we're doing in steps so that we can be ahead of the next 20 years. So I think the voters can trust that we know what we're doing when we
Okay.
ask for this.
Well, I suspect we will have an opportunity to see. So
Absolutely.
That being said, let's go ahead and have a vote.
Okay. Nancy,
Yes.
Brittany, Chris,
no.
Tina,
Yes.
Doug Meyer,
Yes.
Doug Alexander,
Yes.
Bing.
Yes.
Okay, resolution for special election bond issue. We need a motion.
Can you give me just
Oh,
one
yes, I'm
second,
so
please?
sorry,
No, you're
Susan.
fine. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we need a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution calling for a special school bond election to be held on April 7th, 2020, in the amount of $22.7 million. I'd like to ask for a roll call vote, please.
Need a second?
Second?
Okay, discussion.
I just want to compliment Mr. Minching on this one and on how we've approached this since we started talking about it. I've made pretty clear, I think, to everybody my feelings on organizations that go in and call these things no tax increase bond issues when they really are a tax increase. He has done a wonderful job not only of not using that misleading verbiage, but making sure the ballot language doesn't use that. And I know this may shock you, but because of that, I'm going to support this because we're not trying to deceive people with it.
Well, and to the point, this whole process has been months in the making, and we've involved a lot of community stakeholders and business owners and staff and stuff like that. So it's not like we haven't thought about this whole process out. And we took a survey where about 1,500 people in the community answered that survey. They told us what direction they want the district to take. They want teacher salaries increased. They want the maintenance on the buildings. So I think we've done what we should have done, and we've gotten everybody involved that needed to be involved.
I just have one comment about the ballot language, and I know apparently the bond council, it's their suggestion, but it's concerning to me that part of the ballot language refers to existing lease financing, which is confusing because we're not leasing any properties or leasing any buildings, but it refers to the energy loan that we acquired many years ago, but they consider that a lease, I
So
guess. Could you
issue-
explain that, Paul?
So the board, when they approve that, approves the issuance of what's called lease participation certificates. So it's an alternate form of financing. Instead of bonds, you issue lease participation certificates, and so that's why it's called a lease. And so it's part of that is to prepay that, get a better rate, and to pay
On
that.
those certificates that were
Correct.
used for energy
Conservation.
savings, is my understanding. Okay. It's just a little confusing, and I wish it could be worded some other way, but apparently it cannot.
Went back and forth on that a lot.
All right. No, I think this is a good, and I appreciate the fact that we are not using our full bonding capacity, which that was a little concerning when that was first suggested, and so they dropped it back to this amount, which is
That
palatable.
came straight out of the steering committee, and
Yes.
I appreciate the comments that were made to that.
yes.
Yes.
Well, and
Yeah,
all the
well done.
groups that were involved in this need to get a big thank you from us. And it's not easy work to come up with this stuff and to make these proposals. So all the people that answered those surveys, all the people that were members of that strategic planning committee, all the members of the steering committee, like I said, this has been a process, and we've listened to the stakeholders, and this is the direction they've asked us to go in. So I just want to say thank you to all of them.
Any other comments? We need to vote.
Brittany? Chris?
Yes.
Tina?
Yes.
Doug Meyer?
Yes.
Doug Alexander?
Yes.
Bing?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
All right. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you all for taking your time out this morning.